Go. Go.
Go. Do you like my shirt? Do you know what it says?
Veritas.
I don't know how to pronounce it.
Is this a
Boondock Saints?
Boondock Saints? Right.
Yeah, truth and justice.
Love it.
Which, two things. One, I wore the shirt because today my family's doing our annual Watch Boondock Saints for St. Patrick's Day get together.
Okay.
And I
Great
feel
quality
like
entertainment.
yes, so you guys send the kids out of the room because they say the F word like 200 and something times.
Okay.
But yes. And then I was thinking about it and I was like, truth and if that's not us, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
So serves two purposes.
I love that movie because it's one of the first movies that I ever got to root for the bad guys. Right.
Yeah.
And it's that first like, oh, I hate that they're doing it, but it's justice and it needs to be done.
It's like the Batman, vigilante mindset. And they even sort of discussed that at the end of the movie during the credits. But yeah, like if somebody is breaking the law and killing people and doing bad things in the name of good to save non-criminals, should they get a free pass? If they're taking out bad people.
We just took the Luigi thing and see how we've taken. Okay, so you watch Dexter?
No, I've actually never seen it.
All right,
I hear
so
it's
this
good.
guy who is sort of like born with the bad blood of being a serial killer, right?
Okay.
And so he's expressing what's in him by killing bad people.
Oh.
Part of the code is that he has to be certain that the person he's killing is a bad person. So he has to check the box. It's the code he follows.
Okay.
And so first part, like he works for a police department, by the way.
Oh.
The forensics guy, right?
So he has intel as to who's a bad person.
Yes.
Okay.
So if he's based on the case file, if it's pretty certain that there's a bad guy, he takes the person and chops him up and kills him on his murder table. And again, like they're true bad. So, but the Luigi thing was we started skirting on what equals a bad person, right? And if I can say that you voted for Trump, you're a bad person, then when I take you out, right, then it's a common good. But that's not what I consider a bad person.
Yeah.
Murderers, pedophiles, that whole strata of bad, I would be able to hold my nose and not disagree that Dexter should take that person out.
But then if you kill someone else, are then you not a bad person? Then should somebody take you out?
Well, and that's the argument when, you go to war is war when you have a justified killing and it's not murder anymore, right?
Yeah.
So murder is biblically wrong. Justified killings takes a special person with special calling to be able to do that. Now, I could not take a life. I know it. I mean, if it came down to family or I was
like protecting your life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But one of the most shocking moments, like TV moments for me, Saving Private Ryan. You got this dude who's a soldier. He gets into a building. The opposing soldier comes into the building, right? And now you got two people who all of a sudden are just two people, right? They're not on the battlefield. They're just you and I, right?
Yeah.
I'm here to kill you. You're here to kill me. And we're 5 feet away from one another.
Yeah.
The one dude pleaded for his life. I'm sorry, don't do it. And the other soldier took his knife and slow stabbed him and said, shh, 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 as he drove it millimeter by millimeter into this guy's chest. And it shocked me because
what's so wrong?
Two people that are shooting at each other, I don't feel quite as bad because they both have weapons. When you've given yourself up and you're charged with offing you, right?
Yeah.
You're no longer a combatant at that point. That did something in me.
That kind of reminded me of one of my favorite movies. It was just on last weekend. You ever watch Kill Bill?
Yes.
Okay, so I love the Kill Bill movies. And in Kill Bill Volume 2, there's a scene where Beatrix, the main character, found out she's pregnant. Literally moments before an assassin busts through her door to take her out. And they have an exchange where she's like, just before you broke down my door, I found out I'm pregnant. And I need you to know I'm scared for my child's life. And the assassin was like, well, how do I know you're telling the truth? And then she saw the pregnancy test and the assassin was like, what do we do? And she's like, you just turn around and leave. And she did. She took off and let her live. And I was like, oh, even in this cutthroat assassin world where they brutally kill people, she was like, all right, here's your one pass. I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting.
Yeah. But and that's like the morality that you go through when we're in a gray area environment no matter what. Like we are really
of morality.
Yeah. So we're still leveraging morality to justify actions, but we're justifying bad actions, and it's like this really bad porridge of morality.
Yeah. So if you were in the movie The Boondock Saints and you knew, or in real life, that there was some vigilantes taking out bad people, would you support them?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
If they were for sure bad, absolutely. Not settling private scores, but actually taking out bad people. I would say that society needs an exterminator. They really do.
Yeah.
And if people are, as long as it's a code of ethics that for sure that, they're just not murderous, taking innocent life, then yeah, I'd support it. They need more of it. Did I just call for vigilante justice?
I think you did.
I did too.
But the brothers are so cool.
Yeah, and
you kind of want to root for them.
I couldn't personally do it because I'm not badass. Like even if I was defending my family, there would be a good bit of luck because I'm going to be clumsy with grabbing the weapon. I'm going to be clumsy with taking you out. I'm not going to know what to do. I might cry a little bit. So I would not be a good Boondock Saint at all.
Oh, yeah. And in the movie, too, they had a lot of luck. They were supposedly protected from God. So they lucked out in a lot of situations. But they were killed.
Badass. Objectively,
so cool.
Badass.
Yeah.
And that was our first Daryl Dixon introduction.
Yeah.
So he is an eternal badass.
And Connor is my favorite. And I don't know if he's been in anything since Boondock Saints. He may have been. I like Connor because he's cute.
Celebrity crush?
Yes,
that kind of a
yes,
thing?
yes.
Okay.
But yeah, speaking of crying, I've cried before when I accidentally hit an animal crossing the street. I think I hit a chipmunk one time. Do you get that way? Like if it's that?
Not with animals.
No?
No, I will definitely stop and try not to. So
yeah.
If I do it, we talked a little bit about Darwinism. Let's talk about Darwinism.
Darwinism. Okay.
You're familiar with him?
A little. All
right. So Darwinism is a very cruel thing, right? And basically it's the survival of the strongest species.
Yeah.
So if you have a weak species or a weak example of a species and a strong one, the strong one is almost obligated to take out the weak one because we don't want them breeding and making more weak ones, right? So the evolution requires a lot of death and the weaker ones being the ones that are killed.
Yeah.
And so if the animal that runs out on the street is indecisive and gets hit, that one won't breed in any way. And then the genetics that cause the hit might save thousands of that species in the future that now are programmed better decision makers. So when we let the weaker live, we've populated the species with weakened genes, bad decisions, whatever. So there's a call for
sad.
Why?
Well, like it's a cute little chipmunk. He doesn't have to be subject to that. He's gonna be weak. He's a chipmunk.
That's anti-Darwinism, where the weak ones you want to live and live little weakened lives and have millions of them die down the road because you let that one live.
Yeah.
Right? That's an emotional thing.
I used to work with someone years ago that had this theory this was back like during COVID, and they started doing the vaccines and started requiring people to get the vaccines. And she had this, I guess you could say she believed this. I think she believed it, or at least was seriously considering the idea that this was our own form of that the government was making everyone take this injection that a strong person could handle and a weak person could not. And they were trying to create a superhuman
race.
Right.
Is there any virtue in eliminating the weakest of your species if you're coming from a Darwin perspective?
if you're coming from a Darwin perspective.
Okay, so let's use Mars. Mars has 0 people. All right.
As far as we know.
The people we send there are not going to be ones that we don't want to breed there. It's going to be scientists. We're going to send them there with an objective. So if you only send the strongest and smartest for that reason, and they go up there and breed, the population will be more pure, right, than this population who we're not going to go through criminals and send them up there. And unless we pick another planet and send all the criminals to the, remember that movie? Did you ever see that movie?
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, they sent all the criminals to this awful island or something like that, and they got to have freedom, but they were kept away from the rest of society.
Oh, that sounds familiar. I don't know if I saw it, but I feel like I know what you're talking about.
Anyway, we can use Mars and send all of the people who we want to breed. And then we'll take the other planet, and anybody who would do not want to breed anymore, we'll send them to 2 inhospitable planets. And then what you can do is on the inhospitable criminal one, there's going to be some that like straighten their shit out and they become model citizens, and then they can graduate to the planet of purists. Right. I'm using all this charged language for on purpose. I just want to let everybody know.
Yeah.
Because we'll get to eugenics next. So, but in theory, you would want to create strong, capable individuals. Mm-hmm. But the emotional side, you want to help the non-strong, weaker ones, but you don't want them to breed. So what about taking reproductive rights away? Right? You cannot reproduce unless you hit a standard. Making a license that says you can create more of you when you hit a contribution standard to society. Yay or nay?
Well, I mean, I could absolutely see the benefit of that. You make poor decisions, you should not reproduce and create more people that are going to make poor decisions. But are there not cases that someone comes from maybe a family that is typically in the poor decision business and not really going anywhere, but they themselves end up doing something great, turning their lives around, being different?
Listen, you will ruin the whole thing, right? If you start making exceptions before
there's always exceptions.
That's why you can't do it. It's terrible,
yeah.
Right? The exception is what kills the theorem. Because the minute that you feel bad for John and you send him to Mars and now John is reproducing, now you've just ruined the whole lift of trying to make a pure species on Mars.
But isn't that sort of subjective too? Like, couldn't you look at someone and say they should not reproduce? There's nothing valuable about them. They make bad decisions, and someone else could be like, oh, I disagree. I think they're great. I think we need more people like that. Then who decides?
Well, let's ask Darwin. What would Darwin say? If you
fight,
if you took all of the help away from you and you should die, then we should let you. I'm not going to kill you, right? But if you're gonna just destruct until nothingness, just let you die.
Self-destruct,
right?
Yeah.
And if you make bad decisions that lead to death, then you die, and we let it happen. We don't put rails to keep you alive in spite of nature trying to take you out. We let nature decide who should be alive and who should be dead.
I mean, if you look at people like, oh gosh, what's his name? Stephen Hawking. Technically, I guess to that idea, he would not have survived very long.
Right.
But even though he was able to survive, did he not have contributions to society?
That's exactly right.
And he was
that's why I said Darwinism is very mean, because it wants you to be a strong species that can just survive. Right?
Yeah.
And so, like, let's just say we had no modern medicine and you just woke up, there's no hospital to go to, right? You have to survive. If you break a leg, right, and you get eaten by a mountain lion, then you don't reproduce, and people with brittle bones that break easily die, and people with strong bones who can survive it, make good decisions, know where to step, they reproduce and create more people who don't die by being eaten by a lion. That's just how straightforward. It's just getting to the be alive level. One step on top of Darwinism would be, it's not just dying, but now it's adding a contribution. So this would be Darwin plus, right? Mm-hmm. Now you would have to have a set of principles that say, well, can we come to an objective level? The species can survive. What's the next greater contribution? other than just not making poor.
Yeah.
getting
Or
by.
you're
Not-
physically unable, maybe, but you can mentally and organizationally or whatever, you have something to contribute, even if your physical health is not.
Yeah. So if there's 10 people that have on this planet, 5 male, 5 female, and they have an immune system that has natural immunity to every disease, everything. They cannot get sick. They cannot die of disease. So what we do is we say, all right, we're stopping all medical care. Let everybody who's too weak, right, just die. We're not doing vaccines. We're not doing medications. We're not doing surgeries. If you're sick, you're out of here. And we kill off all of the weakened population. And now everybody's dead except for these 10 people. Now, these super immune system people repopulate the earth. Now, everybody has an immune system, right, that is impervious to disease or whatever. Did we not just cure cancers and cure everything by allowing enough death to happen that nature solved that for us?
Would that stay that way, though, over time? Or would it ultimately, over generations, weaken and
again,
change
Darwinism,
and mutate?
It would change. It would always change and mutate. You don't create a super a super species and then nature not say, I got a curveball for you, right? I'm just going to create something that's going to, so it's an ever evolving thing. But we are moving in one direction. We are, through acts of empathy and emotion, we are enabling people who should not make it to make it in their breeding. Right. So what does that do on the Darwin spectrum? It just makes everybody weaker. And then the strong ones are basically cannibalized by the weak ones. And if we swing the pendulum back in the other direction, we're giving advantage to the strong, and we're making, it be a bad thing or a really lot of repercussions from being weak. Now we're skewing it in the other direction. So you kind of know where society is going based on what you can measure in which of those two things that we're doing at any time. And yes, we are making a very dependent, weak society that has lots of suffering at the end of this.
Do you think we have in any way started to swing the other way, though?
No, we won't. We are not allowed to make a conscious effort to swing us back in the strong direction. So what nature does, just like I told you in the Darwin side, it concocts a super virus or a weather event, and then all those weakened people where you were marginally helping them, the chaotic event, kicks those people out anyway. That's the bad calling that nature does, because nature is an asshole and so is Darwin, right? But it's part of our existence.
Well, and I could see things coming to an end when it is the strong versus the weak. That maybe now they are not on the same page, and they're like, hey, someone's like, well, you shouldn't be a little weakling. And the other one's like, well, you shouldn't be such a jerk. And then they fight each other.
Could be. But it's going to take that crisis to wipe out the ones that already shouldn't be here, right? And either the strong will win or the weak will win. If it goes too long in one direction where we're 90% weak and 10% strong, the weak will just be like, the weak shall inherit the earth, right? And it will be a completely different thing. But I don't think that happens in a generation. We're talking like centuries for us to arrive there. And there's no single human in their lifetime going to make a strong enough position that lasts centuries that skews it in the other direction. So this is going to be natural tendencies. So we're going to watch it happen, do nothing about it because we can't, right? Yeah. And we're like, oh, okay. The earth has probably been doing this for millions of years with its species. And where, you watch some of these Nature's Brutal videos. You ever see those?
Like where animals are like hunting each other. Yeah. And
so
also makes me cry.
You come into the video and you see a zebra and he's laying on his side. Right?
Oh no.
And there are lions at his hindquarters eating his legs. And he's going, I wish you wouldn't do that. Do that. God. And you're like, you put yourself in that position of that zebra who's being mauled by lions, and they're not killing him. And you're like, just kill him. If you're going to eat him, put him out of its misery. And the lions are like, dude, I'm a wild animal. I don't give two shits if this thing's suffering because it doesn't care if I'm suffering. Yeah. We're just freaking animals. And how close we are to the animalistic tendencies of a lion, and how certain people, we don't care if they suffer either. We're that lion in other respects, but those videos are supposed to shock you.
Yeah, I saw one years ago. I think it was wolves coming up on like a baby elk or something like that, chasing it, and you could hear the elk running and screeching, like yelling yes for like the mom or somebody as the wolves are coming after it. And I'm watching this like just hoping to God that this thing gets away. And somebody was like, the wolves have to eat too.
Yeah.
Like they are also animals that have to eat and provide for their family.
If you had a little pup that's
saying,
I'm hungry, I haven't eaten in a week. Like, would you let the elk and his screams that he's about to be dinner, or the wolf who's starving and just needs a meal?
It have to be a baby? Couldn't it be like a older, gonna die anyways elk?
We're talking about animals here. And the best was, I saw that video with the elk baby, and a big racked male was there, right? And watching this go down, and I'm secretly saying, go defend. And when I watched the elk go down and eat some grass while this was going on, I was like, what the frick? You're so unkind, and you did nothing. You ate?
He's like, oh, that's a shame.
Right. And I'm like, yep, that's us. The analog of us in animals really point out when we're acting in that way.
Oh gosh. Isn't it weird though how we like, I think though too, we very much have this connection with animals. I think a lot of people in general feel for animals and want to help animals. Don't you think?
Some.
You don't think it's the majority? You think the majority of people would be like, it's an animal, who cares?
Yeah. It all depends on how desensitized you have come. I think our natural, like when we're a baby and a kid, like that would affect us because we're still familiarizing ourselves with life. But after you've played a video game where you shoot things like crazy, and in the movies you shoot things like crazy and see death all around, you're like, it's no big deal.
Yeah. Oh gosh, Leah, like I have this weird struggle, I guess, when it comes to people, like when you have to put a pet down. As a kid, we had pets, and that has had to happen before, but I was a kid. The parents did it. We usually didn't find out till later. In fact, when I was really little, our parents just lied to us and said that the dog went somewhere else. And so while I always found it to be sad, I never really had a big connection to the idea until just a few years ago. I had to do it. And I had to make the decision to put our dog down. And I'm telling you, that messed me up. When I hear people having to do that now, like, oh my God, my heart goes out to them, because it's not just losing your, family member. A lot of people see that as their baby, their family member, their loved one, which is gut-wrenching in and of itself. But to be the one that has to make the decision to let another being live or die and then watch it happen. Nope. That I was messed up for a while.
And so the sort of like the characteristics or the priorities that will align you up. Let's just say you work at a vet clinic, and your job is to stick the needle in, take the life, and you've done 1,000 of them. By your 1,000th one, you will have been able to sever the connection between that animal. The first one, you'd be like, oh my goodness, like I see this is my pet. By the 1,000th one, you're like, it's a machine, right? I'm used to it. I'm desensitized to it.
Yeah.
Right. So that's all you need in order to get rid of all those pesky morals or ethics, is get desensitized to them. And then once you've seen it happen a million times, it's like no big deal. The first instance, like I was watching The Walking Dead, and you watched it, right?
Again, I mean, I've seen bits and pieces, but
when I started watching the series, like the zombies would shock you. It would scare you a little bit. It was gross a little bit and whatever, right? I was really taken aback, and I couldn't watch it in a dark room because it shocked me a little bit with how gross it was. By season 2, you've seen so many zombies get hit in the head and whatever. It's nothing. It's just like a part of it. It doesn't even zap your soul and make you, wince
You're like
at all.
Jaded now.
Right.
Yeah. My husband was in the military, and when they would go on deployments, the wives, we would have our own briefs when they would leave, and they would get briefed and we would get briefed. And then when they were coming back, we had a meeting for our redeployment debrief. And one of the things I would always say is that these soldiers are trained to shut off all emotion when they are gone. and expect that. Let them sort of reacclimate themselves when they come back. Give them some time. But yeah, and I saw where people could see the most horrific things. My husband would tell me about things he saw or did, and I'm just like, I would be in a padded room somewhere.
Yep.
There's no way I could handle that. And they're like, they're literally trained how to be like robot, no emotion, no emotional ties to it.
So, and there's a way psychologically to desensitize you to it, like they do the military, which means that you could psychologically bring people back to having a sensitivity to those things by using the reverse of that process. So part of it is, I think abortions probably are our biggest version of this. How do you get people who are about to kill a living thing baby, right, to have zero empathy for what they're about to do? What do you have to do? You have to dehumanize it, right? Make it so it's not a baby that could be a baby. It's a clump of cells. So we took and says, so that guy that I'm going to go kill, he's not a human being that has a family, because that would open you up to the fact that you're taking a life. He is a communist criminal who probably eats rocks, right? So I've made it easier for you to square with taking his life, because he's not just like you or me. He's not going to breathe air and eat dinner and be just like me. He's got to eats rocks, and he hates puppies and whatever. So that's number one, is I have to humanize it. Now you're still going to have a connection with doing something that is not natural to you. So I have to give you some repetitions that get you used to something over and over and over again until your brain gives up on recommending that you feel a certain way about something, right? That practice is the rehearsal. So if you wanted women to feel differently about getting an abortion, right, you want them to be really, really sad about that. You want them to try not to do that if they can absolutely help it. But do you see how many advocates of abortion have totally decoupled and repeat the cycle over and over again? And that it's sort of like mass psychosis. There are so many women who I have lots of respect for who've totally dehumanized a baby that could be another person.
Yeah, I actually just recently watched a video online about that. Do you know who Charlie Kirk is? So it was one of his videos. He goes out to like college campuses and sort of has these debates with students and things. And one of the students brought up abortion. And Charlie Kirk is very much against it. And the student was pro-choice. And yeah, exactly. He was asking all these questions. And the student was like, well, I don't believe it is a human life yet.
That's step one.
Yeah. And she says it's a zygote or it's a whatever. It's a clump of cells. And he says, okay, when does it become a human life? And she said, well, probably second or third trimester. And he says, really interesting. Why then? And she's like, well, that's when it's formed. And he's like, okay, well, they have a heartbeat at 6 weeks. That's the first trimester. They have brain activity at 8 weeks. That's the first trimester. They can do this. They can, and he points out all these things that he's like, so to your own point, as to, is it an actual living thing, happens much earlier than you think. And he's like, and even if you don't have those characteristics yet, but you have the makings of it, so that's okay then. And then the student would always say, well, why do you not care about the mother's life? Why do you not care about this life? And he's like, because advocating for one person doesn't mean killing another. And he's like, if I advocated for you for something, do I have to go kill this person in order to do it? And so it was this lengthy video, but he did have all these interesting points. I myself, years ago, was very pro-choice. Think of the mother. How could I make that decision for someone? Would I do it? No, I can't imagine being in a situation that I would choose that option, but I'm not them. And how could I put my beliefs on them? And the more I listen and the more I hear these questions, I'm like, that's a good freaking point. Like, why would I not do it for these reasons?
All right. So let's damn psychologists here for a minute, because if the specialty of psychology, if the whole specialty was honest, right, they would take it from a medical and science standpoint. Okay. So you would say if a person was dehumanizing a would-be baby, and they are showing all of the psychosis of having been brainwashed in a certain direction, would psychology see the profile of psychosis and say, no matter what the target of the psychosis is not good, right? It's a villain, right? Mm-hmm. So are there any psychoses that are not a villain? So for instance, if your husband goes off to war, right? And his country said, country's the best, Star Spangled Banner. Is that not a psychosis where you have profiled someone into doing something where you've created justification to do a thing that is outside? I want to destroy some empathy, destroy all. Did we not on purpose create a psychosis to an end to kill an enemy?
Yeah.
Are there any psychoses that shouldn't be treated where we allow them to go rampant because it's a good justification? We like the result of it. We want your husband to go kill somebody that's one of our enemies because we don't want to go do it. And we want to the person that's already making a really hard decision about abortion, right? We don't want them to feel bad. So your justifications are maybe for the right reasons, right? Mm-hmm. But you can't look at a science-based industry like psychology and have them treat certain psychoses outside of medical, right?
Yeah.
You'd want to be able to say it is a okay, so we're doing this on purpose for this outcome. That would be an honest application of the use of a psychosis to an end result. But you be honest about it.
Yeah.
But you don't see that industry attacking things that they disagree with politically.
If you think about it, this might just sort of be going out there. Religious beliefs.
Mm-hmm. Psychosis.
You and I believe in an almighty being in the ether that we can't see, we can't touch, we can't prove the existence of. We believe that a man lived many, many years ago that did these miracles and healed and did all these inexplainable things. And we believe this. Could someone else not come along and be like, you're batshit crazy? Like,
absolutely.
These are fairy tales. This is literal. You're talking about magic.
But the science has already pointed that criticism at that one. And that's where I can look at it openly, is that I have no provable anything. My belief is my belief, and I'll believe whatever I want. I don't need the influence of other people. And I have skepticism whenever I want to have skepticism. It's not up to you. A psychosis is allowing something to continue that is a brain malfunction, where you are taking what should be. So if I said, we live about 180 years. If the Bible says somebody lived 800 years, then my brain is going to say, I don't believe that. I don't know how to explain it. Did it? What is it? Right? That's what's supposed to happen in the brain, is you're supposed to question that thing. And if somebody comes along and says, you shall not question the 800 years, you just believe it because I said so. If I'm like, no, I don't want to.
Yeah.
Then that's a healthy pushback on something that doesn't make sense. So if a soldier said, I'm cool with going and killing an enemy, right, who I know is there to kill me, and I'm righted by that. And I know that I've got to take some of these emotional things that are going to get in my way. And I want you to teach me how to make it so my emotions don't overcome what my logic is telling me to do. I know I have to do that thing, and I know I don't want to do that thing. So brainwash me so that I can be an effective fighter, right? That would be an honest discussion about it, because at least we know we are dealing in malforming or malfunctioning of the brain, but doing it on purpose for a certain reason. But if you asked an abortion activist whether or not they are just tricking themselves into feeling better about something that's an atrocity, right? They're going to be like, no, you're just wrong. That's the religion of abortion, just like the religion of eco-science, and just like the religion of actual dogma and theocracy. And all of this is bad because we are stunting what our brains are supposed to do when we get that kind of stimulus. It's supposed to jack with you a little bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, to your point about reading, weird things, I just at the beginning of the year started doing one of those, read the Bible in a year things and every day. And so I'm very sort of still early on in it, but there are so many things that I will be like, I don't think that happened. That's kind of
what's
magical,
supposed to happen.
But at the same time, Do I believe some parts of it? Sure.
Exactly.
I have faith enough to believe things that I can't prove. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I still don't.
All right, what if I said, like, I don't want you to have conflict with the Bible. Let me do something to you so that those voices in your head that says that you need more information, you need to question something, or just rejection of whatever. I want to get that out of you, right? So with me, I'm the exact same way. If I don't want to take something in, I'm not going to do it until I am satisfied. And there's nobody on the planet that's going to force me being satisfied on that. But if I wanted to, if I was like, oh, this piece of the Bible here really makes me more capable. It makes me a better person and capable. And all I have to do is desensitize myself to this part. And I want to create a self-psychosis. So I give myself a reason for the thing that I'm hanging up on, right? And if it works for me, so I'm like, I can't get over the thing above the 800 years. I agree with the thing below. But this one, I can't get beyond it and read more into it because of that one. I'm going to say that the way this was written down was mistranslated. They meant something else, or it was a metaphor or whatever. Yeah. So when I read that, I can easily get to the next line because I've created a self-justification, self-psychosis, and I knew what I was doing the whole time. I didn't have to deaden my skepticism on it to accomplish that. I used logic and intelligence to get over that.
Yeah, because part of me, like, quite a few times wanted to just shut it and be like, this is a fairy tale. This is not factual. This is ridiculous. And then I tell myself, listen, there's got to be a reason that millions of people live by this and trust in this. We have churches, we have clergy, we have all kinds of people that are like, this is it. I'm telling you. So I was like, I'll just keep going. Maybe somewhere down the road, this gets explained or this makes more sense later on, like story's not done yet. So let's keep it going because I have to like tell myself something's going to come from this. It has to. Otherwise, why would anybody read this and think that this stuff happened? It's all magic, but yeah, I talk myself into stuff all the time.
That's all I ask from this stuff is that what you're doing when you're doing it, so you don't just become whatever that is.
Yeah, you don't just get so easily manipulated. Exactly. Maybe you're choosing to manipulate yourself.
Exactly. You know what you're doing. Your husband knows that he's deadening a portion of his brain that he wants to bring back at a later point, but he knows he's doing it on purpose. It didn't happen to him and he's a victim of it. The outside victim part, that's the part that I disagree with. And the ignorance that's what's being done to you.
Yeah. In fact, a lot of times we would hear too that it wasn't until military retirement, and when they actually leave and are removed from all that is when they truly start to have problems with it, because now they no longer have the reason to shut down. They feel almost done with it now, and it starts to come back like, holy shit, I just did that. And I used to tell my husband all the time, when I would encourage him to go and seek help or treatment or talk to somebody about it, he would always try to insist he was fine. And I said, to me, if you truly are fine with everything you saw and did, that is less normal than do you need help with it? Because yes, you should know you were in a mindset on purpose to handle that. You are no longer in that mindset. So obviously you're going to feel differently. If you didn't, that would be a red flag. Yes. That would be weird.
But and again, it's so common in how we behave. Even the transgender thing is our current psychosis, right? Mm-hmm. So do you think, okay, I'll use the same standards and same rule set to do that, right?
Okay.
So if somebody's like, man, I feel very feminine. I have a lot of emotions. I think I might be a girl. I like watching and playing with toys that are, I think I might be a girl.
Right? I have feminine gender characteristics.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay. So far, no harm, no foul. You're exploring things that you're noticing and feeling. Somebody shouldn't come along and say, you're not feeling those things. Somebody shouldn't come along, you're feeling those things, and I'll tell you exactly why, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you do the mass appeal to this, then you want more people to see and suggest to people, hey, don't you feel kind of feminine? Shouldn't you wear dresses and behave? And you're going to catch some people in there that are like, yeah, I kind of do. Like, I can't believe I saw some kids playing with My Little Pony, and I wanted to play My Little Pony too. Maybe I'm a girl too. It's that confusion that we're creating the mass psychosis where we're making it extremely, you know,
I've heard it referred to as a contagion.
It is that's what we're explaining here is how we're doing it. We're exploring something, a natural occurring phenomenon, and we're justifying it and taking what people really feel about it. Like, as a human being, what would you think about a boy that thought that they were a girl?
I would question that.
Okay.
Why do you think that?
Right. So you'd be interested. You'd be curious. And you don't know the answer to it because it's, you wish somebody who was objective would be looking at to help this person. They're obviously searching for something, right?
Yeah.
But there is criticism. If you say, if you criticize, it's not a very popular thing to do, right?
Yeah.
And so you create all of the things that you would need for a mass psychosis. You have people that are, bystanders, that they're just like, okay, well, I'm willing to give into the psychosis because in the end, it makes somebody explore who they really are. It's hard to argue against all of the reasons. If that's who someone is, and who am I to say it? It's none of my business. Let them do whatever they want to do.
Yeah. And I've even I saw a video recently. Somebody said they believe gender is not real. Not sex, male, female, biological sex.
This is part of the psychosis too, by the way.
But yeah, the gender, the feelings, I like dolls, or I like trucks, and I like blue, and I like pink, and those gender characteristics, they say it's your personality. And it might have been Charlie Kirk. I'm not sure about that. But this person said, I think this whole idea of labeling people and their gender's not real. There are just personalities, infinite personalities. You might enjoy this or not like this. And
again, that's a part of the psychosis setup, is to take something that has absolutely no utility whatsoever and somehow push it into the problems over here. This has nothing to do with it. This is what you should be talking about, right? The exploration, the desensitizing you of, I knew a kid in high school, super feminine, crossed his legs a different way, mannerisms. He grew up around women. He had 2 sisters and a mom. No, dad wasn't really in the picture, right? So he took on the characteristics of those people. He has a family. He married a woman. He never transitioned. But if you were to take expressions at the time and took what he knew, you could absolutely make the suggestion, hey, you're probably a girl, right? And you could probably influence it because, okay, if it's an accepted thing and I get extra virtue currency because now I'm all of a sudden a girl, maybe I'll take that as and explore that. Now, let's just say you go forward and you take a girl, transitions, was feeling in the moment, got things cut off of her or him, and now they took that on. Later in life, you see a lot of these people kind of looking back to those original decisions and saying, what the frick was I thinking?
Yeah.
The regret that comes along with that, because the pressures of then exploring those in the ways that was acceptable at the time made you do things. And the whole psychosis was everybody's reinforcing that.
Here's where it gets like really deep and interesting for me. That kid that you said that was a boy, crossed his legs, acted feminine. Was he gay? Was he attracted to men?
No.
So all it was his basically the way he carried himself, his interests. Here's what I don't get. So I have known people like that just are sort of effeminate in the way they present themselves. But again, they marry a woman. They say they're straight, it's just the way they present themselves. I have a male friend who was a cheerleader. That's it. Nothing else about him could ever be mistaken for feminine. He's very straight. My thing is like, where does it come into play that you not only associate with things like the way you dress, how you present yourself, how you move, but when you cross into the realm of being attracted to the same sex and being gay, and then I guess sort of attaching that to the desire to transition. Like, I can't imagine someone wanting physically change their body that did not truly believe they wanted to be that sex so much that they were even wanting to be attracted to or be with the same sex. You know what I'm saying here? Like, how do I word this? I guess what makes somebody want to take it to that level when they could just be gay? You know what I mean? Like, why would they suddenly now want to surgically alter everything and be that other sex?
All right. So going back to Darwinism, and basically the species is going to come up against an obstacle that is either going to reinforce the behavior or it is going to end the behavior. Right. Mm-hmm. And so and this is all cultured things. And that's what you were calling gender and what the society, what the people around you will either get in your way. So if I've got this kid who's a little feminine and dad's in the room and saying, no, you're going to play with trucks, that obstacle is going to make that person choose, like, the suggestion of you should be playing with trucks is either going to be like, I'm doing it because you're making me, but I'm really not liking the truck thing. Or like, I'm not going to entertain this feeling that I might be a girl somehow. And it will almost filter itself. Right. Mm-hmm. But if you have a culture that is reinforcing only in a direction, you've removed the obstacles that would figure out which one is the gay person who was just wired differently and is a different person versus someone who took the contagion and pursued something that wasn't about them, but they get caught in that filter because everybody around them was like, there's nothing stopping me. Everybody's like, go for you. It's even better over here. Hey, go for you. You're super virtuous. I want to invite you to my parties because you're my little, what is that, toy cup terrier?
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
You're my little token gay friend or transitioning friend. It elevates obstacles. Keep it honest. Keep the discussion honest, whether or not you're dealing with someone really who just needs the support, that they're different and we got to love them the same way. And the people who are just playing the role in the theater and going along with the mass psychosis of being the role that society is in the moment adopting and super happy about and whatever. And that's why you're going to have, I'm guessing half the people are caught in the stream of, I'm going to pay attention to you because you're a certain way. And half the people are wired different, know it, and they're exploring it and finding out who they really are. But these people scare me. The ones that are not supposed to be there, they're going to take huge social consequences, relational consequences, family consequences. The downside is huge for them. The people that are just trying to find their way, they need to find their way what's going to make them happy. And the obstacle might have felt bad, but it really said, the person that wants to go to the gym, right, is not looking for a reason to not go to the gym. They will jump over an obstacle if that's really where they want and need to be. Mm-hmm. And so the obstacle has to be great enough that it makes sure that you're serious and you're not just following the convenience or the social order of things.
How do you feel about adults, like teachers? I don't know if you'd say that. Maybe, I guess you'd use the term validating or gendering kids in the way they want to be. Maybe they'll say, listen, we're not changing you physically. We're not putting you on puberty blockers. We're not doing anything to change your physical body. And if you are older and you're an adult and you want to make that decision, fine, but you are a kid and we're not doing that. But we'll call you whatever name. We'll call you he, she. You can wear clothes. Do you agree with that mindset of going along with what they want at the time? Or would you say maybe we should push back and be like, listen, I realize you feel that way, but this is what you are to the world. And this is how we're going to refer to you until you are an adult and you can make that decision later. Or where's that line maybe of
neither?
Okay.
Here's the thing. Just like I wouldn't want somebody advocating for something that is so personal and to be handled by people who care about them, I wouldn't want somebody that truly is a certain way coming to some snap conclusion because they dislike it. I wouldn't want a teacher saying, you're not a girl. And I wouldn't want a teacher saying, I know you're a girl. Neither one of them. I want it to be, oh, by the way, we're here for education. And now I'm just going to call you by your last name. And we're going to neutralize the language so that I'm not for and I'm not against. You're here to learn shit. So shut up about your pronouns. I'll teach you what a pronoun is, but shut up about.
But
yours.
Isn't that sort of choosing you're choosing path of I'm not doing what you want me to do?
No, you're not doing anything. All right.
But you are.
You're not.
Okay. So
but everybody gets a last name. No, in this deal, since we can't use pronouns because there's some people who aren't. Okay, so you're at a party and you're vegan.
Oh, you're saying the whole class.
The whole class.
Oh.
Right? You're a vegan. You go to a dinner party. Do you expect to be catered to with vegan, or do you expect that you bring your own shit?
I would bring my own.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't let other people bow to whatever thing is when it is a dinner party and you can't have expectations that people are there to make sure you have what you need.
Okay, so then to that point, wouldn't making the whole class then go to only last names be catering to the one person? Like if let's say I'm in a classroom. I'm a woman. I'm very proud to be a woman. Women can do things men can't do, and that's a big deal. And then here comes little Johnny, and little Johnny's like, hey, I'm a woman too, and I want to be called she, he, and I want to be called Beverly. And you're like, well, Johnny, I'm not going to call you Beverly. I'm not going to say she, but you can just be Jones. You're Johnny Jones, and I'm going to call you Jones. And you're going to call me my last name. And I'm like, no, I like my name. I'm a woman. I want to be referred to as a woman. I want you to use my name. Why am I now only a last name? I'm completely dehumanized.
Okay, that is a benefit of the society for agreement, right? Everybody has to agree on things in order to realize the benefit. So if we're like, hey, in the office, we can listen to music in here. It's a good benefit. We can listen to music. People like music, but you like heavy metal and you turn on heavy metal. And now person over here is like, I don't like heavy metal. This isn't good for me. So now I'm like, okay, well, we couldn't handle the benefit without repercussions. So what happens to the radio? No radio, neutral, right? You could only earn the benefit by having an agreement on what is acceptable within that benefit scheme. And it has to be accepted by all people. So the rebels, and I have a rebel spirit. I know that my spirit has ruined a ton of benefits because of my rebelliousness. I want to push against X, right? Before I push against X, I don't know everything that's connected to X, right? I know that I want to push against X. What if there's 5 benefits connected to X? And if I push on X, I ruined something I really like down the road because of that thing. So thoughtfulness and having multiple dimensions of thought allow you to think through, like, what disturbance am I really causing here? The butterfly effect of social contagions kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So yes, you ruin a lot of benefits. If we can't use Mr. and Mrs. because we invent 50,000 other things, and we can't make anybody happy when we do it. And there's, it's not just a one person, fringe example, then you can't do Mr. and Mrs. anymore. You lost the benefit of Mrs. and Mrs. and now it's neutralized.
But in doing that, in neutralizing it, are you not then still catering to the one example? And you've changed everything because one person was unhappy.
You have.
Instead of making everyone else feel some way.
But you have to know that benefit that you had wasn't a thing that was granted. It is not a standard. The benefit goes away. Like, do you have to say Mr. and Mrs.? That was a benefit of communication. You lost the benefit of communication by it was working. I broke it. Now it has to go away. There was a point where there was no Mr. and Mrs. and we're just going back to where Mr. and Mrs. was.
Yeah. Like, there's been some people sort of up in arms online that some places are wanting to do away with like gender binary language, and you are no longer a woman, you're a birthing person or whatever the term is. And I think that's where women are like, no, bull crap. I'm a woman. I had a kid. That's a big deal to me. I want to be referred to as such, not a birthing person. But would you then say would you be for that whole like, well, yeah, let's just use birthing person, because if Frank wants to be called a woman, but he's not, and Helen wants to be called a woman and she is, but Frank will be unhappy. Okay, neither of you are, you're birthing.
I mentioned the agreement. So the way that this evolution happens is you get to a point, find out that it's not better, and say, holy crap, I don't want that. And you can slide back. So let's just say our country was founded by religious people, and they followed the commandments where they didn't do certain things. And then down the road, we're like, okay, we don't want religion anymore. We want to be a secular society, and that code over there was just a mythical thing, and we don't want to follow that anymore. Now, over time, those 10 commandments start like disappearing in everyday lives. The virtues get replaced by vices, and all of a sudden, you're like, holy shit! Like, I really like the foundation that Christianity did, because my neighbor, I didn't have to worry about him murdering me and taking my shit, right?
Yeah.
But now, we made a big mistake. right? So then you have the ability to agree and say, guys, I was wrong. Let's slide back to the Christian value side of things. So we have that foundation. Take all the benefits of, you don't have to go back to pre-Christian times. You don't have to go back to caveman days. You don't have to go to medieval times. You don't have to go to the Dark Ages. You have to go to any of those things. You don't have to make it dramatic and take everything away, but you neutralize it going back to the last save point of when it was good. You have to attribute the things that you benefited from the Christian values and then say, let's just slide back to we know it was working last.
Well, how do you find that if, so if I look at it from the other perspective, let's say people have been gay for years. It used to just not be accepted. They had to be in the closet. They couldn't talk about it. They had to hide it because it was not socially acceptable. So this is your
best point? This is your best point.
Yeah. So was that when it was good? Is that back to where we should take it?
Yes. But here's what we purchased with the chaos that we're having here. Remember, this is evolution, which means things die off to recreate new things. So if you slide beyond it, do you think we have a better appreciation for gays and lesbians than we did in the 80s when people were hiding from it? So let's just say we went too far in this direction. Let's slide it back, right? That we didn't make it the centerpiece of all of our discussions. Now, everybody that exists during this phase, we'll call this Christian times. I'm not using that in the real word, but saying we slid it back until the time when we knew it was working best, where there wasn't the focal point. But now you have information from the future, the last future, where we got desensitized to it. It wasn't a big as a deal. We didn't ostracize people. We didn't hold it against them. Now we're more tolerant. We went too far, but we bought tolerance with going too far. Then we slide back, and now people aren't, ashamed of it. They tell people about it because we're like, I know like 6 gay people. That doesn't mean anything to me. Now, if you remove the downside, right?
Yeah.
You broke some shit when you went to the too far, but now when you go back there, it's like, you know what? We're not going to make it a big deal. We're not going to make it virtuous. It's just blah. It's nice and boring. Everybody who wants to be that way, cool. And we don't really care very much anymore, which means that in the future, we will be dancing this dance before again, right? We'll get 2-3 generations down the road. They'll go through this same freaking exercise, come to the same effing conclusion, go too far, swing back, go back to the last save point, and repeat the process. The species will evolve with new information. I could write a book and say, hey guys, in the future, you don't have to take it to these extremes. There's so much devastation. Here's what it is. And guess what you arrive at? You arrive at the foundational principles of Christianity of how to treat people and how to organize yourself, but you almost have to go through the crisis to be able to get back to the founding principles. And the rebels in us will break it every single time. And when we break it, we purchase new information the next time through.
It almost feels like in any situation or any group of people that were ever at one point either discriminated against or closeted or for any reason made to feel less than, it's like we try to put things into place to eradicate that. And it almost always then goes
not almost
too
always.
far.
Not almost always. It always goes that far.
Yeah.
But that's why the psychology department should be studying the profile of this evolution and knowing, like, being able to call it out and instead of being shocked and like they've never seen this before. Societies evolve by doing bad things, coming back, learning from those experiences and going in the other direction. So we had, gays, we had blacks, we had Jews, like in our evolution of people that we've marginalized and mistreated, right?
Mm-hmm.
There will be another one after this one. There will be us short people will say, you assholes, second-class citizen, deprived me of relationships and education and opportunities because of my stature. I am the marginalized category. And we'll go through this all stupid shit of short people going through, taking it too far. And then we're like, oh, I guess we should not hold superficial things against people, and we'll be right back in the situation. And after short people, it'll be the next thing, and after the next thing, it'll be the next thing. It is something we will do for all of time, but we can't be shocked like humans have never been through this, because all we want to do is we want to use the history of those mistakes and get fixated on them rather than saying there's good information on what we did. Is there a way that we could do the next marginalized category by buying them into it without the devastation and the chaos that we use to purchase? Could we make it easier next time? And Darwin's going to say, no, you can't. Death is necessary in order for the evolution. You make it easy and less painful, and you don't learn from it, and you just end up hitting it time and time and time again. So the chaos and the pain is part of it. So hit that chipmunk and take those weak genes out of the pool.
I was gonna say now.
Oh, sorry, I just ripped you with the.
I don't want to hit the chipmunk. I mean, yeah, and in so many instances now, I'm realizing where, with good intentions, we attempted to right a wrong, and then it morphed into a new wrong. And when you try to right it, now you're a hateful person. You're a bigot, or you're mean.
Well, can you be honest that, like, when blacks were mistreated by whites, all right, and they went through all of the stuff, they used violence, they used speech, they used the levers of government to be able to right that wrong. You can say that and you get almost 100% agreement that was wrong and that should have not happened. Now you get the exploitation of race, where if I disagree with you, I call you racist. Isn't that wrong too?
Yeah.
And if it's less popular, if I couldn't get agreement that exploiting something in the past to leverage bad behavior today, like, the worst is black people can't be racist. That is the dumbest shit that I've ever heard in my life. It rates me every time I hear, because that's an exploitation that you were going to use the guilt from a previous generation to justify wrongs today. Now you're the asshole now. Like, I agree that the white guys that were being assholes back then are assholes, but I also think you're an asshole for doing the same thing. Not the same thing, but something in a bad territory on your own.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've heard someone say that before, and it was just like, what? Like, at what point did we try to make something better?
But
and
there's
it just
so many
went
freaking
insane.
people that are like, oh, I agree. Yeah, black people can't be racist. It's the dumbest shit I've ever heard.
And the most ridiculous is when you even have this conversation, you have to be so careful, because then you come off as some sort of way because you even talked about it. It like you don't have the right to even have an opinion if you're not black, or you're not gay, or you're not transgender, or you're not a woman. What right do you have? You know, like, my choice, my body. I'm a woman. No man's going to tell me what I can and can't do. How dare you figure that out? Or, you know, you're not gay. How dare you question anything I do? And I get that point to an extent.
Tell me about the extent.
But tell about the extent. Like, when I no longer think.
Yeah.
Well, we could talk about the abortion issue. You know, do I think women should have rights? Sure. I'm not saying that anybody should make a decision for someone in certain situations. But again, like, do I want someone terminating a pregnancy? No. It gets complicated, you know? Do I want to support my friends that are gay or transgendered and they are adults making decisions for themselves? You know what? If that is bettering your life, who am I to say it's not? I don't know what your situation is or what you've dealt with, but when you're like, well, now we're going to let this child do the same thing, I'm like, whoa, pump the brakes. Like, part of me really wants to acknowledge their point, but like we just said, where does it go off the rails? I can only support to an extent. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, much better. Yeah.
Okay.
Much better. So, like, it comes down to self-importance, right? And how many people have come to you and said, hey, I'm about to make a decision and I want to get your input on it. And think about the things that they ask your input from, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if they're not including you, like, hey, I'm going to buy a boat, right? And I know you've bought a boat before. Give me all the upsides. Give me real talk on the downsides. I want to make an educated, decisions. Someone before they're having an abortion, they don't care your opinion on it, right? They're not saying, should I abort? Do you think it's right, Kelin? And you're not the arbiter of right and wrong. They're not coming to you for their moral decisions. Now, can you proselytize and, let people know that you think is wrong? Yeah, but you're not winning anybody over on that. So the best thing is neutralize it where you're not in part of the deal, right? You're not included in that. But the self-important side comes in is that we think our opinions matter. And if they just had the information that's in our head, they would make total different decisions, right? But the evolution of a species, you have to let something go through the pain so that they learn. They're not looking to say, if I could write, and anybody who has kids kind of knows this. The kid, when they do something, right, they don't want your opinion because you're likely going to talk them out of it.
Yeah.
They don't want to share the information before they do something. But if something bad happens, they want to share the consequences with you so that you can help them out of it. So if somebody came to me and said, I'm about to make a decision and they wanted my opinion in the beginning, then they get my help at the end because they let me be in charge of both. But if you don't want me anywhere near it, like, hey, I'm thinking about having sex, right? What's the pros and cons of that? Oh, you might get pregnant, right? You might actually have a baby. And do you have a good plan for that? Oh, no, I don't. That would ruin my life right now. I'd have to drop out of school and whatever. I would say, hey, you really should either use bulletproof protection or not have sex. Not sex, 100% chance that you're cool. 99% chance if you use protection. Now they go into it. They shared what would happen. I would actually coach and help and be there for the person because they made, even if it was a wrong decision, they wanted me in the whole formula. Right. So.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I think it's really difficult to almost sort of be in that mindset of knowing you're going to possibly do or make a decision that could go real bad and reaching out first rather than later. You know, I feel like I can think of situations in my life where I was like, ooh, I should not. I want to, though. I should not. I shouldn't, but I'm gonna. No.
You are the squirrel on the road.
Yes. And there have been times where I like, you have to be strong enough to grab somebody and be like, I'm about to do this.
100%.
Like, call a sponsor. I have to do this. I need you to stop me.
If it is so bad, if you heard from everybody that you know that taking out a student loan is oppressive for your next 20 years, and you're like, before I do this shit, I better talk to people who are good at math, right?
Yeah.
Because this is a probabilities question, and I'm not good at probabilities. I make emotional judgments, and I'm likely to let my eagerness to go to college, right, take priority over later implications, down the road responsibilities. So let me go talk to somebody that knows probabilities and say, Joe, I'm about to take a student loan. And I would say, here's the pros and cons. I don't care which one you do at all. I'm just going to lay it out. This is what it looks like if this happens. This is the way it looks like this happens. And if this one says my life is over, right, at least you now can decide that on a piece of paper it said, if this happens, my life is over. This is what I'm going to do. Then I ask you, is it worth it, knowing that this is a 2% possibility? And they're like, I'm going to gamble with it. I'm going to go after the 98%. I'm going in this eyes wide open. If it happens, you come back to me and, you know, we'll talk new numbers here. But that's what I'm saying. Like, so many people who are making decisions outside the guidelines of logic, reason, and mathematics, they're making poor decisions, but then want to share their poor decisions with other people. And we're like, F you. You had sex. It buys a baby sometimes. That sucks for you now. Did you not know the formula?
Yeah. It was interesting because in that video I watched with Charlie Kirk versus the student, and they were debating abortion, she was like, but accidents happen. And he's like, did you choose to have sex? And she's like, well, that's just so. And he's like, did you or not? Did you do that? Do you know how babies are made? And she's like, but you can take precautions and accidents still happen. And he's like, right, accidents happen. So do we murder someone when an accident happens? And I'm just like, that's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah.
The discussion is valuable. And where you don't, like, nobody is listening on this debate. Nobody is. Everybody's already decided where they stand. And so you can't add new checkmates to this because the people in psychosis are still there and the people are against it. Like, the second deal is this: if the objective of having kids, right, is just to bring them into prosperous households, and we're going back to Darwinism because it always is, and if they're non-prosperous in a really bad household where that kid is going to experience some shit, right? Where we could kill you to spare you. So
that's a big argument.
So let's go into the future and say, you're about to hit something that is really difficult, right? And you're not going to like it. It's awful. Can I put a bullet in your head and just spare you from the whole experience? And to you, it would be like, all right, a struggling life is more valuable than no life at all, right? So in order for me to be right in this part of the conversation, life has to be so sacred. No matter if it's a good life or a bad life, being alive is better than not being alive. And when we have discussions like taking people out that have cancer, like suicides that are doctors assisted. Right?
Oh, euthanasia,
right?
Okay.
And so if we're like, hey, you're going to suffer, right? There's a dividing line. The agreement of what is suffering and death is better than life has to be accepted and shared with everyone. If you don't have agreement, then you have where we're at right now. So just asking you, do you think, okay, let me give you some scenarios and you tell me whether you'd rather be alive or dead.
Oh God. Okay.
Terminal cancer and bedridden.
I'm the worst person to ask difficult questions to.
No, just give me gut reaction. Would you rather be alive or would you rather be gone?
Terminal cancer and
you're bedridden, alive, or you're alive and awake and can talk and do all things, but you're in a bed.
And I probably still want to be alive.
Okay, alive. So 1 point for alive, 0 points for dead.
Yeah.
How about disfigured by an explosion and in pain every day of your life?
In pain every day of my life.
Yep.
Does it matter what age these things happen? Because to me it matters.
This is an alive or dead thing.
Because like there are things I don't want to miss in my life, but am I already old?
It is a consideration. It is a consideration.
I have questions.
We'll say, Kelin, right now, if you were in that position.
Right now,
live or dead.
I feel like I still want to be alive.
Okay. Let's just say in financial peril where bill collectors are calling you and people are chasing you down and you got to go in court every day, alive or dead?
Alive.
Okay. How about somebody you care about dies and they're your everything and now you don't have them?
Alive.
So live, keeping score, 4 alive. How about the apocalypse is starting to happen? You survived, but you know you're walking into just terrible society.
I was gonna say, am I all alone or there's a bad society?
We'll do both. All alone, live or dead?
Probably closer to maybe being dead.
Okay.
If I'm all alone.
All alone. So being alone is a killer for you. Extrovert, of course.
Yeah.
Now,
that sounds like
this is an easy one. I'm going to give it already. I'm not even going to ask you, but society that's gunning for each other and pillaging and taking stuff, that's dead, right? Oh, no, wait, hold on. I'll take that back. Your reaction says maybe you want to be alive if there were other people, even if there were bad people. Alive or dead?
Well, I will probably end up dead. So you're saying just society has gone to hell. It's awful. And
yeah, you got a red button that says Goneville. You hit the button and you're no longer.
I would probably still hold off.
You're alive. Okay.
Yeah.
5-1 so far.
I have a reason for this, though.
All right. So now you're in a huge funk of depression. You cannot see a future ahead of you. Everything you had planned is gone, and you are feeling like there's nothing that you touch that goes right.
You say everybody I love is gone?
No.
Oh.
Your purpose, your things in your future are gone. You got everybody around you still. You're just depressed in your room, and you're sad about everything.
Look, I still want to stay alive and fix it.
Okay.
Yeah.
6-1.
Yeah.
All right.
Now, all of these I feel like can be fixed, except when I'm by myself.
No, you're in pain and cancer. Your ass wanted to stay alive and you're in pain.
Here's the thing, because death is coming eventually. I will die eventually. do I want to miss things in my one life?
You want to speed it up so that happens now. So
yeah, it's going to come anyway. So can I endure some suffering to still get that little bit of experience here while possible?
What about when you're alone and you have resources around you? You just don't have anybody to do anything for you or talk to you about things. You're just alone. You could try to survive for a couple of months. Can I talk you out of this dead?
What do I do all day?
Eat. You can sleep. You can play in the sand. You can, I don't know.
All right. I'll live and I'll just become crazy and make up imaginary friends. I could do that.
Is there a scenario you would hit the red button that you can think of that is a definite 100% I need to be out of here?
I don't think so, because I know it will happen. It's going to come. I'm not here indefinitely. So I can't think of one that I can't just wait a little longer and see what happens.
Okay. So I'm going to if I was a psychologist up there on the hill, I would say you are a person that values the life experience. Okay. You're in a position right now where you can't see the dreads of being in any of those scenarios. People are in those scenarios may choose different because they're freaking in it and they're not experiencing anything.
Yeah.
But you are in a high life value profile. Now, we do have suicide. I too am in the high life value thing. Even if it's through suffering, being here is way better than not being here in pretty much any scenario. Aside from you're captured by an enemy and they're torturing you and tearing off your skin, I would ask for the red button in 2 seconds to escape that. But that is being violated, not a naturally occurring
that's
thing.
Just a slow death.
Yeah, that is exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Now there are people who take any one of those certain, I'm really sad and I don't see a future and that future was everything to me. I hit the red button to escape today. Yeah. That is when, if the mass psychosis is we devalue life, then the more people that exist that don't see their lives as valuable and other people's lives are valuable, they're not going to see a baby's life as being valuable. That's an easy hit. So if I'm controlling the masses and I want to keep devaluing life, right, I'm going to make it so that suicide is almost an acceptable option in my case by making doctors make it legal. Is there what is an obstacle that I could create that makes offing yourself harder?
If you make someone believe that offing yourself will cause some sort of consequence in the afterlife.
Hurt somebody in the afterlife or even in person. If you kill yourself, your family's going to struggle a ton, right? So the emotional leverage that you would have, what your decision is about to affect other people, so long that you have a conscience still that you care if somebody else is still affected. Again, going to heaven or taking your immortality at that point away from you. Now, what obstacle could you remove that would make suicide and the devaluation of life more likely, more probable?
You could remove same thing, that mindset that life is valuable and meaningful and it's a bad thing to do.
You get a pass, you'll go to heaven still, and somebody will protect your family. There will be no repercussions.
Nobody's going to miss that anyway.
Make it legal so that there's no repercussions if you're failed at it. Make doctors available, put like a euthanasia clinic on every corner, make it nice and available. So you can definitely skew it in one direction or the other. Now, going back to Darwin for the 900th time during the show, what about our evolution? This is a natural tendency. We're not controlling this. This isn't a they out there that's controlling us. What about nature would have any kind of evolutionary advantage to suggest to a species that they don't matter, they're not valuable, it's cool to kill each other off, go to war, abort babies, punch your friend in the face, like all of that? Life isn't even valuable. What value would nature have in that, in offing or giving the suggestion to off a species?
What value would nature have?
Nature has
I could see
it
people
makes the chipmunk die because you can say, well, it makes stronger chipmunks in the future, more decisive chipmunks in the future.
Yeah.
You can justify it by saying nature had a good plan that rights naturally all of the wrongs. So what in evolution would benefit from half of the population thinking their life is valueless and that it's okay to just die. Because there's Darwin in this.
I mean, if nature would benefit from people then that are going to thrive in the nature.
So the people who value life, right, will live, and the people who don't value life will ultimately have a red button at their disposal in one way or another. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the people who have value in life will live as long as someone who does not comes and takes those lives.
True. Yeah. And that, again, that's the messiness and chaos of Darwin. If you fully embrace it, you have to take all of that pain as the species evolves into another plane. But remember, I said Darwin, when the pendulum swings, it takes crisis, like a pandemic that sweeps in and takes out the weakness out of it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So just take the check marks. What would remove a portion of the species without the chaos of a meteor, a famine, a pandemic? What if you made self-offing a legitimate option? What if you removed a bunch of people's immune systems? What if you sterilized and had nobody procreate? What if you would have procreation as a, sort of like a social non-option? So all of these, we're talking population collapse here.
Yeah.
And all of these things mean a bunch of people didn't take a crisis from natural state. It took a social crisis where we basically offed half of our population, but it was their idea.
Yeah. We just led them to believe that that's the right thing to do.
Right.
That's the good option.
And these people are the ones, the weak ones that we were trying to save from themselves, still figured out how to naturally off themselves. So we didn't kill them. Right?
Yeah.
We didn't suggest that we starve them into infinity. They offed themselves. So it's almost like death was in the cards in that subset of the population in one way or another. Sterilization, abortion, war, suicide, like things that on this side of it would absolutely say that one's bad, that one's bad, that one's bad, because it all devalues life. And that, I guess that's the overall point of how much philosophy you take in on the things that we're doing, that we think we're just being unique creatures that are coming to these sophisticated conclusions because we're so self-important, versus nature's like, nope, final destination. If you're gonna die, it's gonna happen, and it's either gonna be the cliff or the spiked fence post
or the tree on the back of the truck.
Exactly.
So when you're driving,
yes,
and you accidentally hit an animal,
yeah,
are you like, survival of the fittest, go about your day?
No, because I'm not a complete jerk. I'm a little bit of a jerk, but not that big.
You feel a little bad.
I wrecked my freaking car. I'm gonna
freaking
dents and cost involved. My insurance is gonna go up. That stupid
what
animal.
If there's no damage to your car?
All right, I feel a little bit bad. I hope he didn't suffer, and if he did suffer, I
hope it was quick.
I hope it was
quick and painless.
But if they're like moving around on the ground,
do you go back then and kill them?
Have to
put I gotta tell you a story.
The zebra was getting eaten by lions. If I could put a bullet in the head of the zebra to end his pain, I would.
My husband once, this sounds so terrible. An old house we used to live in had a ledge right outside our front door, and birds built a nest there and laid eggs. So anytime we were even next to our front door, we were getting dive bombed all the time with these birds. And we got so ticked off one time, we would try to shoo them away. We move the nest. We want these birds away from us. Quit running in, like literally would try to attack us by our own front door. And so one time a bird was coming and my husband grabbed a rolled up ball of socks and just chucked it, just trying to get it to shoo, but he hit it and it fell to the ground and was like flopping. And we're like, oh my God. And we couldn't let it just suffer. So he killed it.
How?
Oh God.
What method? Stomp? Did he stomp it?
Broom of all things. A freaking
death by broom?
Yeah, it was the worst. I said, surely there was a better way to do that, but he beat it to death. There was a similar instance where a bird was stuck in a bug tray and it was stuck and he backed over it with his truck, but he attempted to just kill it quickly because we're like, you can't let it suffer. It's going to suffer. So end it quickly, kill it. And that messed me up too.
All right. So broom's not the proper method. If you
no,
have to take out a
really
creature,
not.
I've done probably 4 or 5 different ones of these and I'm not happy with all of them. Okay.
Yeah.
So the foot stomp's one of them because it'll end quickly, but it's rather violent, but it happens right away. I had a bunch of reptiles growing up, and when they would get, like, I had one that had, it basically expelled part of its intestines out through its anus, and it was hanging out. And I knew it was suffering.
God.
And that one, I did the freeze method where you put it in a bag and you Ziploc and put it in the freezer. And the temperature goes down, its heart rate starts down, and then it freezes out. Wasn't happy with that one. I know it was not quick, but it was non-violent.
Would that have been best for him to
I
die
don't know.
slowly?
I didn't know how. It was big. It was a big creature.
Maybe it just went to sleep.
Yeah, because it was a reptile. It's when it goes into a dormant state when it gets cold. So the cold snap would have put it in a dormant state, and then would freeze the rest of the way out.
It just died in its sleep, maybe.
Maybe that's why I'm going.
Yeah.
And then I've done the drowning method where another animal was suffering and put it in water, and maybe 3 minutes it left us, but it took a while, and that was not the proper way. I regretted that one. So if you had to,
what kind of animal was that?
It was a little lizard.
Oh, gross.
It was a little lizard, yeah. So drowning method. I did not like that one, and that one was probably a mistake. Could have thought of better ways. But you only have so many things at your disposal. You don't have the gas that you can put.
Yeah, and it's illegal to shoot. Like the one bird that he backed over, for a second we thought about shooting it, but you can't just like discharge a firearm in a neighborhood. So yeah, this bird was actually stuck to something, and removing it was ripping its wings off. And so he just put the whole thing in a bag behind the tire of his truck and really fast.
Right.
I did that on accident one time. There was a little baby bird at the same house because they wouldn't stop building nests around us no matter what we did. And this adorable fuzzy little baby bird was over by the front door, and I thought he was fine. And kids and I are going somewhere, and I get in the car and I'm backing down the driveway, and I happen to look in front of me and I see this blood splatter, and I went, and I put the car in park and I got out, and as I had backed over the little baby bird.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It was a bad day too.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
But I don't think we've arrived. Now, is that a responsibility that if you have a home and you know there might be an injured animal, that you already have a contingency to how to? Because really, what's the deal? You don't want suffering. You don't want the zebra to feel himself being eaten alive.
Yeah.
So you need it to be fast. And my ways, like I said, made me feel a little bit more guilty. The freezing and the drowning. What would you? Can't shoot it. Stomp its head with a shoe doesn't feel all that great. So I think because we value life, I don't think ending any life without giving a shot or putting the gas mask on, I think everything is going to be slower than you'd want it to be and more violent than you would want it to be.
So after choosing to kill an animal to end its suffering, if there was a human that was like, I am suffering, I need you to end this, could you do it?
No, not a human. Because I could take a human to a hospital, right? Deliver them, and they can do something about it. There isn't an animal where you take.
But what if it's somebody in the hospital? This is it. This is it for them. They're suffering.
No, it's their decision. And if they asked me, I would say, I would say this is your decision. But go ahead.
What about zombie apocalypse? Bit by a zombie, they're turning. They are done for. Do you end it for them?
Yeah.
That would probably be the one example. Zombie apocalypse.
Let's hope that one doesn't happen.
Let's hope not.
All right. Anything else? We went way.
God, we go all over the place.
Anything else that was on rattling in Kelin's mind?
I don't think so.
But every time you walk by some of those dirt bags that have the Darwin bumper sticker on their car, that's a thumb in the eye of Christianity. That's all they really mean by it. But I want you to think, and the people listening to think, that they're really picking everything I said about Darwinism, picking the asshole nature and Darwinism and how much suffering is involved in the evolution of his species. And that's what you're for. Those are I hope they don't believe that. But if they did, they're a truly bad person.
Oh, you just made me think of another.
Yeah, go for it.
I don't know if do we have time to even,
go for it.
This may not go anywhere, but you talked about those bumper stickers you see. How do you feel about the ones that say coexist with all kinds of different symbols? There's religious symbols, mystic, wicked, blah, blah, all kinds of just different ways of thinking.
I don't believe it.
Coexisting.
I think it's bullshit.
Yeah.
Because, like what earlier in the program, you will always take exceptions, right? So there are certain ones that you will not include in your coexist. Like if you've got a Ku Klux Klan member as a neighbor, we need to coexist. Invite him over to the barbecue. We have to know how he feels and thinks. So that one you would exclude. So if you can exclude one, you don't really mean coexist.
Yeah.
You mean that you got a couple of favorites, right? And you want those ones to be cool. We want to expel these ones. So it's not what you think it means. It's bastardizing a word.
Yeah, because I mean, if you have someone that is super conservative, Christian, religious, and they think certain things are wrong, but then you have another person that does not follow those teachings, that maybe follow a different set of teachings, and they think there's nothing wrong with something, you guys are not going to get along.
That's why I said
and
those
coexist.
bumper stickers are a thumb in the eye. And that's why I say they're bullshit, because they don't mean what they say they're meaning. And it's meant to be like, I'm better than you. Like you picked one and you think Christianity is the only one. Watch this. I'm going to take 4 that you disagree with, and you're going to be mad when you see this. They didn't do it because they want to celebrate the diversity. They want to poke somebody in the eye and make them mad about something.
Do you think when people say things like coexist, peace and love, just accept each other, just love each other, and those blanketed statements, really to their core, what they actually mean is just everybody keep your opinions to yourself and stop fighting?
I wish that's what they meant.
That's really all they can do with that.
Yeah, but good luck with it. Just pay attention to them for the next couple hours and see if they truly don't say something divisive.
Yeah. If that coexist bumper sticker is on a car that cuts me off, then gives me the finger, I'm ripping
They're not
that off.
coexisting. They are definitely more important to you, and probably one of those narcissists that just want to make other people mad. And that's fine. If you want to put a middle finger up on your bumper sticker to piss off other people, cool. You want to put a flying spaghetti monster to poke fun at Christians, cool. You want to put, I don't care. I know it's there just to make somebody mad.
Yeah.
That's
it. Don't let it make you mad.
I don't.
Go on with your life. I tried to. I'll go. And then I said, just go on with my life. I heard an expression recently, and I'm trying to live by it. You've probably heard this. You do not have to attend every argument you are invited to.
It's true. It's true. Especially because nobody's asking for your opinion.
Yeah.
They are not knocking
You're
on
not
your door.
going to win it.
You're an authority, Kelin. Would you please tell me how I should feel? You're not there.
I can think of one time I made a Facebook post about something that was grinding my gears, and somebody said, all right, I actually didn't think about it that way. Thanks for giving me something to think about. And they were sincere about it. One time.
Yep. Be discriminating when it comes to who you give insights to, because if they're not collecting information, all you're doing is fighting, and that's
yeah, especially when they're not going to hear you.
No.
You can say something. We get hate on the internet all the time because somebody heard something that was this much information of this long of a podcast, and they want to comment and think they know something, and they don't know you. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't know why you said that or the context in which you said it. So do you fight with them endlessly, or do you walk away?
Picture them that if, let's just say, you had an exchange with them and you're like, oh, okay, you just, you and I don't see eye on this. Come in front of the microphone and let's hash it out. They're going to say no, because they don't have any more. It would be just them repeating that same thing that they already said to you. There's not going to be depth and understanding and reason and principles. It's going to have a bunch of stuff that's not really their argument, but it's going to be a very boring episode.
Or they'll say, well, you said this, so blah, blah, blah. And I said, you're right, I did. But did you hear before that? I said, yada, yada, yada. And that's why I said that? Oh, no, I didn't hear that part. Okay, we done here? Bye.
So that would be your filter to get. If you can't see them being someone you can have a two-way bidirectional conversation with, then don't engage, because it's just a
and that group that you can have a conversation with is getting smaller and smaller.
Really small
by the day.
Yeah.
Darwinism.